Welcome to the podcast. So today we have a special treat for you. One of my current Confident at Work program clients, Nick, is with us and kindly agreed to do an interview to talk to us about her experiences of being in the program. And she shares really candidly about the kind of stuff she was dealing with around her confidence before she joined the program and her experiences of being in it and where she's at now. And it was lovely for me to listen to. And I hope it will be great for you to listen to too, because I know you hear me talking about this stuff all the time on the podcast, but I also want you to hear from people who are like you and who are experiencing some of the challenges that you're experiencing with their confidence around work and have now successfully navigated them to the point where they feel a hell of a lot better and a hell of a lot more confident than they used to. And I want you to hear it because I want you to know that it's possible and you can do it too. So, without further ado, please do enjoy the episode with Nicola. And the doors to the Confident at Work program open again on the 30th of January. So I'm going to leave a link in the show notes. You can check it out, book a call with me if you want to talk about joining. That's the program that Nicola did. That's the program that we're talking about, that she's gone through. You can hear how much it helped her. So if you think that it could help you, you are very warmly invited to join the next round. And I will leave all the links in the show notes. Okay, on with the interview. Welcome to the podcast, Nick.
Thank you.
Lovely to have you with us. Good, thank you. Lovely to have you with us. So there's a few things that we're going to touch on and talk about today, but I just wanted to start with giving you the opportunity to introduce yourself and tell people like who you are and what you do. Anything you wanna tell us to start with.
Yeah. So I'm Nicola. Recently founder of Nicola Rose Com. So was freelance, self-employed last year, and now kind of running my own influencer marketing agency that helps startup brands and kind of within their teenage years by advising and implementing influencer marketing strategies to their business. So that's from kind of like onboarding the strategy or kind of taking on board what they've already done and kind of running with it. And also do a bit kind of like social media strategy on the side.
Cool. Sounds exciting.
It is.
Good. All right. So if you need influencer marketing help, you know where to go to.
I'm your girl.
Nick's your girl. So you joined the Confident at Work program in September 22. So can you tell us why you decided to join? What made you think about joining?
So I found the lovely Anna via the Stack World, which I think is amazing. So I joined in September because kind of the reason why I went freelance and self-employed came from I just quit my job in 2021. I think it was just kind of like a build-up of pandemic, kind of a very high-pressure job, and it kind of came to a bit of a head. And I just realized that 9 to 5 for me just wasn't it. And it just wasn't helping kind of like my mental health, and really struggled with anxiety, depression, came out of that job and just didn't know what to do. And kind of fell back into love of influencer marketing and thought, let's give freelancing a crack at it and see how it goes. So that's kind of why I'm here. But I never really got to the bottom of why I quit and why I felt the way that I did at that time. I kind of just brushed it underneath the carpet and was like, okay, let's just go with this, but never addressed it. And then there was moments within the past year where kind of things would come up, like imposter syndrome or feeling really anxious or not knowing how to navigate through really stressful moments. So I just shut down. Kind of that idea of dealing with clients, now it's kind of like dealing with founders and owners and people of kind of like the high, what's the word for it? Kind of,
yeah, like the big
kind of more like, yeah. So I kind of went into it, and I think a few kind of like reoccurring themes were happening whilst I was in full-time employment, and I was like, this isn't normal. I need to understand why I'm feeling like this, kind of build my confidence up and kind of attack it and just understand why I feel this way, because I never got to the bottom of why I feel this way, or never found anyone who could help me navigate that and kind of realize that, no, like, this is pretty norm. What you're feeling isn't different, like, it's not abnormal. Because I'd speak to kind of peers and friends and family, and they'll just say, it's just work, get on with it, like, it's fine. But actually it's not, it's really like affecting me. So I think I found like a little Slack message from you on the Stack World, and I thought, wow, this is a bit of me. And I said, I need to understand and get to the bottom of it, of why I always feel on edge, very anxious. Why am I battling with like imposter syndrome? I've been doing this since I've left uni, which was, God, about 9 years ago. So
she says 9. I'm thinking like 25.
And then I just noticed you on the Stack channel. We had a call, really open, kind of honest conversation about why I'm feeling like this, and he was really open and said, look, if I feel like I can help you, I'll let you know. And then that was it. And then we went from there.
Cool. Yeah, it's good to hear. And I think to your point about like, why am I feeling like this, and everyone just saying, oh, it's just work. And so many people that I work with say, oh, well, I knew I was experiencing this stuff like imposter syndrome, or I was feeling anxious at work or overwhelmed or whatever, but I didn't actually know how to get help with it. Really, I didn't really know if anyone could help me. And some people will say, well, I thought about therapy, but that didn't quite seem right. And then they're like, oh, this is something that you do.
Yeah. And I went through all of that. I went through kind of speaking to people, and I just instantly thought it was a me thing. Do you get what I mean? I was like, it's just me. It's just the way that I deal with it. It's just my personality trait, and it is that. But I just couldn't. I just felt really lonely, and I'm very confident in all other aspects of my life, I reckon. But with work, there's just one thing that I just can't. And I mean, we've done a lot of work, and it's massively helped, and there's been massive changes. But it's just, I don't know. I think you just need to do the work yourself to kind of get there, and kind of past kind of other not activations. That's the wrong word. I'm like work mode, but other things that I've done to kind of help just didn't help. And I thought, this is a bit of self-investment. This is going to help you get to the bottom of it. And it's working.
Good.
It's working.
So good to hear that. Good. And good on you, like good on past you for actually doing that and taking care of yourself, because it's easy not to, and just to let it roll on. But actually what I find with most people is, if they do just let it roll on, not much changes.
No. And I made such a drastic kind of change of like quitting my job. I am a very kind of like career heavy person, and I always want to like push myself, but quitting my job was like the biggest thing that I could have ever done. I was so scared. I was like, but a big change needed to happen. And I think that change was great, and it's benefited, but you need to kind of reflect and understand why did you need that at that time, and how are we going to kind of just get to the bottom of it, of why you felt like that. Because there's been instances where, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not perfect, but there has been instances where that has come up, and that's probably the benefit of having you, Anna, is because it's come up, and then I've had like a session with you the day after, and then we can chat about it and understand why that's happening, and kind of work on ways to deal with it better.
You've mentioned a few times, like, actually understand what's happening and why it's happening. Tell us about that. Like, was that important for you? What did that change? Just understanding what was actually going on.
Because I felt kind of like, felt a bit lonely in the way that I was feeling. I felt like I was the only person who felt like that. And kind of in terms of, I'm trying to think. I feel like I'm in a session now.
No coaching, just an interview.
I don't know. I was just noticing these things were happening, like, and I just could not deal with it. And reflecting back on it, those things still happen, but it's just learning, like listening to your body, just saying, okay, this is okay to feel like this. You are allowed to feel like this, whether it's just shutting your laptop or just walking away from it or putting an email off for 5 days because the anxiety or the worry or the stress that come with it. Or if there was a scenario that I made a mistake and am I allowed to swear? Or am I allowed to
Yeah. This is an explicit podcast.
Or if I fucked up on something, I just did not know how to deal with it. I would just put it to the side. I'd often cry. Or if something came my way that was really out of my comfort zone and I thought, oh, I can't do that, I'd get really overwhelmed and I'd probably just cry. And it's very emotional as well. I'm a very emotional person. But understanding why I felt like that and understanding the steps to just take a 5-minute breather, let it all digest. Like, you don't have to attack it straight there. Just all these things would happen. And it got to the point where it was literally, you've got a presentation tomorrow, and I'll just cry for about 10 minutes and then just deal with it. But that's not good for your head. So just understanding how to deal with that was really important to me.
Yeah. And one of the things that when we started working together, we obviously do like a full audit of where you're at and the things that you want to work on and the stuff that is currently challenging around your confidence. And one of the things you said was that, and you described it as those out of comfort zone situations, the big out of comfort zone situations. And now, thanks to Nick, that is the terminology that I use around those things, because I think everybody knows what that means. Like, it's not the stuff that happens all day, every day.
Yeah.
It's the stuff that you might do once a week or once a month or whatever. So what was happening for you around those big out of comfort zone situations when we started?
So I think for me, where say if I had to pitch to a new client or had to put a proposal together and really sell myself, basically, have real conviction of what I would do, I would think about that meeting every single day until it happened, and would probably overthink it. And then where the overthinking comes from, you'd get really big like self-doubt, like, oh, you can't do this, why are you doing this? Or there'd be another voice like, push the meeting back if you don't feel like, stuff like that. And whereas and they pop up, those that does pop up, like those challenges pop up all the time, but I just couldn't deal with it. And I think it was learning to, okay, that's fine to think about every day because it's something big and that's fine, but instead of thinking about it and doing nothing about it, that's what my problem was. I'd just put it off. I'm one of those people who just put something off until like the last week and then stress about it, and then it just overconsume me, and then I'd overthink about it, and then it just wasn't normal. So just spending 30 minutes a day on something, whether it's just getting the framework of a presentation done or just writing your notes or just a bit of research, and then you can just put that to bed and be like, okay, I feel better now. I've done 30 minutes in that. The meeting's in 2 weeks. Just do that. It'll probably make you feel, I just kind of, there was just a shift basically of how I felt about things. And it probably does help, seeing as I'm freelance and I really manage my own time. But I think definitely like full-time employment, that was the bugbearer, because I still had to do your everyday work, but something comes in and you're like, like, this is scary. But it's definitely got better. It definitely has got better.
Yeah. Good. And when you said there's a shift in how I feel about these things, is there a shift in how you're thinking about them? So you said before, like, I would overthink, the self-doubt would creep in, and it sounds like that was just like the Wild West basically inside your brain in those moments.
Yeah, no, there's definitely been a shift. I feel like instead of just thinking about something, or we spoke about this a lot, if there was like a mistake or if I made a mistake, I'd kind of just push it to the side, because even opening the email would make me cringe. I'd be like, oh God, like, I can't even look at that. So I think the shift of just giving it a bit of time and then understanding that you've got the rest of your day to get on with stuff. Or also realizing that there's so many hours in the day. This is one of my problems is, and I think we spoke about this a lot, like I feel like I have to be stuck to my desk between 9 to 5 and get real doubt of being self-doubt about being away from my desk. Just understanding how many hours of the day there are, and like it's 30 minutes, I've got the whole day, just work on it when maybe you feel a bit more positive. So I always work best in the morning. So just getting it out the way, and that's where you've got your most energy, and you just put more of your energy in it in the morning, and then you've got the whole day to get on with everything else.
Yeah,
that's how I attack those kind of more stressful parts of my job. It's like to just get them out, and then just
cool.
Yeah.
Good for you. Do you cry as much?
No.
Interesting. What happened there?
I mean, nothing's gone terribly wrong within the past couple of weeks. I mean, it's been Christmas. It's really nice to kind of.
Although I'll just remind you then, Nick, that's your brain being like, you didn't change anything. It's just because nothing bad happened in the last 2 weeks. That's why you haven't cried.
I think so. But I think I've just learned maybe just to listen to how I want to deal with things. And I think we've kind of come to the conclusion that I'm one of those people who just find comfort in just getting something warm and just putting it around me for like 30 minutes, and then just. And I think I've probably learned to understand what my body needs and just remove myself from the situation. I was really bad at that. I would just sit there, try and carry on with work. My mind's going woo, 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 woo. Like couldn't concentrate. Whereas it's probably just more beneficial just to walk away for 30 minutes, come back, and then like relax.
Yeah.
And just think about it. So I think I've been putting that I've definitely been putting that into practice, and it's helped. And I think we also spoke about like understanding how I feel on that day. I'm not feeling guilty if you can't smash out like 9 hours of brilliant work, like
every single day.
I know, because I get so guilty. I'm like, and my friends and everyone think I'm mad. They're like, I don't understand how you expect yourself to be like a machine every single day. But if I don't feel like a machine, or if I don't, I get such bad guilt. But then again, it's just understanding how I feel that day, and I'm not always going to be 100% or feel amazing. Just go with how you feel, basically.
Yeah, good. And you know what? You've got the opportunity to do that because you are self-employed, and maybe you can manage your time a little bit more. But
yeah,
I think one of the points you made, which is about like, if you're in a situation where you're really struggling or you're overwhelmed, you just kind of sit there and like force yourself to carry on. I hear that so often. But what people will tell me is I actually was completely ineffective. I couldn't really do what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
But I'm like locked in this thing where I'm staring at the laptop or whatever. And I think just like you did, learning, how would I take really good care of myself? What do I actually need in that moment to be effective later on in the day?
Yeah.
And once you knew, it was like, I need to get under a blanket. I need to have something warm. I need to do this. It was like, great.
Yeah.
And that actually enabling you to be more effective for the rest of the day. Because we think, oh no, that's like, I need to like plow through. And it's like, it's a false economy a lot of the time.
Yeah. And that doesn't work for me. I think everyone's got their own different ways of working. Like you've got your moments of the day where you're more energetic or you perform like best. And I just think I've definitely learned that I just can't do that throughout 9 hours of the day.
Yeah.
And not being so hard on myself as well.
Oh yeah. So Nick learned that she wasn't a machine.
Yeah.
Which was a surprise to her. But what about not being so hard on yourself? Like, what did you, because obviously we talk about that, and that's one of the things that I do with people is help them to think about being self-critical and being hard on themselves, and what that actually creates within your working day. And it ain't good.
No.
But give us an idea of like, were you very hard on yourself? What did that look like for you?
I think it was constant. I was really hard on myself. I suffered like a lot with imposter syndrome. So kind of comparing myself to other people, which I've got better at. And I'm very much a perfectionist. So things that kind of go out of my control or things that aren't out of my control, I get really, really anxious. Wouldn't like to say I'm a micromanager, but I'm one of those people. I'm like, if I can just do it, I just know it's to my standard, which is just not good. I can't be like that. What was the question?
No, I was asking about being like hard on yourself. What did you find out? Because I think I would point out moments to you where you were maybe being hard on yourself. Like, did you even know you were doing that when we started?
Probably not. And then also realizing one thing that I've realized, like stepping away from it all, is I actually didn't need to be hard on myself.
Ooh.
It was fine. Like the situation was fine. And I think that being hard on yourself comes from a lot of self-doubt of like, you can't do it, like it's not going to go well, or this presentation is going to flop, or there's a massive typo in your email, or just even tiny things like that, just worrying about things like that. And actually, where there's been scenarios coming away from it and like, actually that went really well, it's fine, like you did really well, like don't worry about it. And I still have that. I'm not perfect, but I do still have that. I still have self-doubt and worry about these things and overanalyze and is this perfect, and I still get that. But I think you just kind of need to realize how far you've come, or in the work environment, or what you've previously done.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I'm really bad at practicing this. Absolutely, I always think the negative. But yeah, I'm still learning to get there, and still like practicing it, but just kind of realizing that it's fine, it's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one of the like fun jobs that you have as a coach is to point out to people the progress they've made and how far they've come, because the natural thing that our brains do is we just kind of skip over it and we're like, oh yeah, and now I'm on to the next thing. And it's only when you stop and reflect that you're like, actually, do you know what, bloody hell, I deal with things completely differently to how I dealt with them 6 months ago. And I think you are an example of that.
Yeah.
Are you as critical as you used to be to yourself?
Probably not. No, I think there was a transition period. I think this is when there was a transition period for some reason around the summer holidays. I just went on a solo trip and I came back and I was like feeling amazing, felt really content. It was like, yeah, like you're kind of smashing it. And then there was a scenario and I just kind of flipped it and I was like, well, there's not much I can do, it's not really my fault. And there was kind of a bit of like a back and forth with a client. And I think I kind of, because we always talk about how I go into the adult child relationship with work, I always feel like I'm going to get told off. I always feel like I'm going to lose a client, I'm going to lose my job, like that constant fear. But I kind of switched a bit, but it's not like that all the time. I'd like to say it's probably like 80% of the time I feel like that.
Nice. 80% of the time you're like, I'm an adult, I'm the expert.
Yeah.
And what was that like when we started? Percentage?
Probably about 30%.
Oh, nice.
Expert.
Nice. Good improvement.
You're good at what you do, Anna. You're good at what you do.
I will take that compliment. I accept that. I am good at what I do. And you're good at what you do. And that's part of the reason I do this. I hate the fact that so many women that are so good at what they do, they know their stuff, they're technically brilliant, and yet they feel like shit on the inside and worrying and doubting themselves constantly. Like, this is women who are like you. You know what you're doing, you're an expert in your area, and yet your brain is just giving you the complete runaround and being like, are you sure? Do you even know what you're doing? I just think that's such a shame.
Yeah. And you know what I like, what you do this practice with me, and it really puts me in perspective, and you did it yesterday actually. It's, you give me a scenario about kind of like a client, and I'll give you the answer, and then you go, well, why can't you do that to yourself? And it's just like clicks, and I'm like, okay, why haven't I thought like that?
Yeah, this is a scenario of Nick having all the answers, because obviously one of the things that I always say about coaching is I don't actually give any advice and I don't have any of the answers, but I know that my client, like I know that you do. And when you hear yourself say it about like, what would you do if that was your client? And you're like, bang, 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 this is what I would do. And I'm like, feels like you do know what you should do here.
I'm like, light bulb moment. Yeah, okay, perfect. Let's go with it.
Light bulb moment. Let's go. Yeah. And when you're, we talked a bit there about like being the expert and like trusting that you're the expert and like sticking in that energy. Tell us about, well, just tell us a bit about that, because I think a lot of people, and maybe some people listening, will know logically that they are good at their job, and they know logically that they are an expert and they know what they're doing, but they still feel really doubtful about it. So what's your experience been of looking at that?
I think a lot of that, me personally, comes from kind of like past experiences of past experiences that I haven't dealt with. So whether that's like really bad managers who are really like hypercritical. And I think we spoke about that as well, kind of like it's always been drilled into me from when I was younger to be like, you've got to go to uni, you've got to do this, you've got to do that, da 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 da. And I think actually that doesn't relate to that. I'm just going off on a tangent again. But no, I think definitely kind of past experiences that I haven't dealt with where everyone's really like hypercritical and it doubts me, or being in scenarios where people have been after your job, or kind of like, do you get what I mean? Taking things that are your job and you can't get that control back, and you're just like, hold on 1 minute, like this should be my remit, why hasn't that been given into me? And then there's that doubt of I'm not good enough I'm not good enough, like why am I here? Going into one-on-ones worrying like, am I going to lose my job? Like, have I hit all of this? And I think it just comes from past experiences that I've never dealt with. I've learned from them experiences, because I always over prepare all the time. But yeah, it's definitely past experiences for me, and I'm still learning to get there. I think definitely with what I do, it's a very top, I speak to kind of like top level people, because obviously I'm supporting brands, and I think the practice of that over the past years really helped. I think I just went into it, and that helped. And I'm a very personal person as well, so I think if I'm meeting someone, I always try to get them on a personal level and understand that. And also someone actually taught me something. Someone always said to me, you are the expert of what you do. There's no one else there who does what you do, so you are the expert. And I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like, there's no, if someone's employed me to do something, or if I'm working with a brand that's never done influencer marketing, they're leaning on me for my expertise. So that massively helps. Kind of just reassuring myself that there's a reason why I'm here. So that helps with kind of with that adult child kind of scenario. And I think kind of past experiences as well that was kind of, I always had self-doubts of I was never gonna get a promotion, or I'd never be able to achieve that level, or kind of be a head of role, or I never had conviction in myself to believe that I could get to that. I just always thought I'd always be managed. I just always believed that. I was like, I'm always going to be managed, like that's that. And I think being self-employed and freelance, there's obviously that shift, because you obviously work for people, but you generally are your own boss. So I think having this experience over the past years definitely helped me navigate through that. But I think that kind of scenario with me is kind of getting better. And
good. Good. I'm glad to hear it, because and this goes to a podcast episode that I recorded, because I keep speaking to people about it. And maybe you planted the idea in my head, Nick, but it's that there are a lot of people, unfortunately, who've had an experience in a workplace where their confidence was almost completely eroded.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult when you come out of that scenario, because you've left, and that's great. So you'd think you'd be okay once you've left, but what you don't realize is you've developed a load of habits and coping mechanisms to deal with the place that you were in. And when you come out of that place, you're still using those same habits and coping mechanisms once you've left. So like you said, I became like hyper aware of, is everything I'm doing completely perfect? Is, am I like overworking to the nth degree? Am I over preparing everything? Do I even know what I'm talking about? And all of the time having to check yourself, because that's actually what you had to do in that old environment in order
Yeah.
to kind of survive. But in the new environment where everything's actually like, things are going well and it's okay, you're still like, that stuff is still happening on the inside. So it makes complete sense that you still pretty much feel like shit, even though you've left.
Yeah.
And I think we worked a bit on like understanding that that was actually happening, and
Yeah.
like thinking, how do you want to manage yourself? Because you were managed pretty poorly in the past, right?
Yeah.
And do you want to keep
Admittedly.
managing yourself like that, just unconsciously?
No. And I think we did like a brilliant exercise of writing your own rules of kind of what that looks like
Yeah.
and how you want to be managed. What are your working rules? What rules do you want to get out? What rules do you want to stick to? Or what rules do you want to amend to kind of how you work? And I think the benefit of definitely working for yourself, that helps, because you can really put them into play pretty effectively. But yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I'll just like explain that exercise for people who are listening. So I get during the Confident at Work program, one of the things that I do with clients is to get them to think about what rules they're operating with right now. And it's a weird thing to say, like, what rules do you have for work? Because most of the time you will not notice that they are your rules. They're just the way you do things. They're just the things you assume are true, but you are acting with a set of rules all the time. And it's really helping you to look at those and say, okay, here are your actual rules. Do you even like them? And a lot of time people will go through and be like, no, don't like that. That makes me feel like crap. Strike that out. Maybe that one needs changing a little bit, and just understanding what rules you're working with at the moment, and then deciding, actually consciously deciding, do I want to work like this? Do I want to treat myself like this? Like, what are my new rules? And just having those straight really helps your brain, because in that moment, even if it's unconscious, your brain will be like, yeah, that isn't one of our rules. That's not how we do things.
Yeah.
And it can really help you. Can you think of is there any of yours that you would be happy to share to give people an example?
I think there's one that just sticks out is is to stick at my desk no matter how busy you are from 9 to 5. And I think that's one struggle that I've always worried with, is that in the working day, I have to be by my laptop. And that meant like laptop was with me every single second of the day. Like no matter how busy I am, or if I'm not busy, say if I finish all my work by 2, laptop still goes with me, like wherever I am. And I always had this fear of, and I think that's the beauty of being self-employed, and that's why I wanted to do that, was to have more freedom of my time and time manage, just understanding. I just could not get past the 9 to 5 mentality. And it wasn't until like a couple of months ago where we really started to work on that. Kind of like waking up in the morning, how do you feel? Do you want to go to a gym class? Do you not? Do you want to start a bit earlier? Do you want to start a bit later? That's fine. Do you have any meetings today? Just understanding how I felt each morning and then kind of going off by that. And I think we worked on that. I think it was more, I think my previous rule was, got to be at a desk by 9, got to have your lunch at 1, got to finish at 5:30 or later. And I'd get this fear if I moved away from my laptop throughout those hours, that I'd be like, oh my God, fuck, someone's going to call me, something's going to go wrong. That would happen all the time. So I think we worked on that kind of to change that and see what kind of, I think we amended it to determine your working day hours reflective of how you feel in the morning. So, and that's worked. So for instance, today, went to a spin class with my friend, started at 9:30, but old me would have been an anxious wreck and be like, I'm late, I'm late, I'm
Between
late, I'm
9 and
late.
9:30.
Yeah, essentially, like, oh my God, I'm late, oh my God, I'm late, someone's gonna call me, something's gonna go wrong, I'm not here to deal with it.
Yeah.
And I've got better with it. I've 100% got better with it, but that was me previously. So that was one of the rules that we changed. And I think it's really important for me to work on that. And I have been. I feel so much better for it.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Good to like know. I love that exercise because it makes what is unconscious but is actually happening conscious. And then you get to decide, do I want to work like that? And if the answer is no, you get to write your own rule.
Yeah.
And this is even for people who are employed. Most people that I work with are pretty senior, so they can not completely, no one completely makes their own rules around work probably, but people can make their own rules, but they're just assuming that they can't, or they just don't because they never really think about it.
Yeah. I felt a lot like that. Kind of, I would just never ask. I would never ask, even like full-time employment about a holiday. I'd just be really scared to ask. It's ridiculous. And I think even with that, say if it's a Sunday and if it makes me feel a bit better, to eliminate any Sunday scaries, work on the Sunday. And then it really has helped. I used to get really bad Sunday scaries. I used to get really, really scared on a Sunday, even though I check my emails, everything's fine. I would just feel so anxious and I just couldn't stop. I just stopped enjoying my weekend. My weekend was essentially Friday night and Saturday. So on Sunday, I'd often cry sometimes on a Sunday because I was so scared to go to work. So that has helped. I don't get that. I literally do not get that anymore. I quite like my Sundays.
Well, I never. That's really nice. So you mean you've taken back enjoyment of your weekends?
Yeah, because I felt guilty.
Pleased to hear it. Yeah, that's a big thing actually. Being able to enjoy your time off.
Yeah. I think a lot of people can't do that. It's because, I don't know, it's just a lot of stress, kind of like what goes on between those hours. So when you step away from it, for me, I just felt a bit out of control. And then I'd make sure again on Monday, I was at my desk at 8 o'clock in the morning, even though I started at 9. It's crazy. Yeah. That's my time.
Yeah. That's cool. That's good to hear. Yeah. And I think it is a general. Well, actually, no, let me ask you, do you enjoy your work more now?
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
How come?
Because I feel like I'm not worrying, like overthinking it. I feel like I've definitely got a lot more confidence in what I do. And I think where I had all that self-doubt, anxiety, kind of worry about work, it just took the joy out of it. And I just resented it so much. I hated it so much. And that kind of carried from job to job. There was always something that I just wasn't happy about. And I think now I definitely get a lot more enjoyment out of it. I think being freelance and kind of helping brands and helping kind of drive success for them and what that means from influence marketing, it's just, I get a real kick out of it. And also I benefit from doing like loads of different things just because it shifts what I'm doing. I can't focus on one thing for like loads of hours. So I'd rather just split it across the time, and having a lot of kind of variety in what I do now, I get a lot more enjoyment out of it.
Cool. Good. I'm glad to hear it. Good. Happier weekends, happier weekdays.
Yeah, definitely. And
go on.
No, I was just gonna say, you just feel more rested as well. You just feel more refreshed. I mean, it depends on how many glasses of wine you have on a Saturday, but you just feel more refreshed on the Monday, and you just come in with it with more of a positive attitude.
Yeah. And a lot of what people tell me is that overthinking, that like the mental work that you're doing whilst you're at work and whilst you're out of work, that is exhausting.
Yeah. Affects your sleep, affects your moods. It would affect my relationships with, like, I remember I lived with my mum when I lived with my mum, and she would just call me miserable all the time. She's like, "Why are you miserable?" And I was like, "Because I've spoken to too many people this, like, throughout the day, and I just can't speak to anyone else." And she's like, "You're just always really miserable." And I just noticed that it really affected everyone else around me. I'd be grouchy, or I wouldn't want to do anything on a Sunday afternoon because, or if like my friends want to go for a glass of wine, I'd be like, "Nope, need to be like routine."
I need to
like,
be stressing about work right now.
Basically, and yeah, wild.
Oh yeah, that is wild.
Yeah.
Good. All right. Well, good on you for thinking maybe I can do something about this and actually doing it. Because I think I don't just, well, do you feel like you've worked hard at it? I certainly think that you've been like committed to the program and to like showing up and thinking about it. And how's that felt for you?
I feel like with you, it's been a very open space, and I think a lot of what we do as well is I always give you a scenario, and then I'll just go off on a tangent, and then I kind of will think of a solution or counteract it with something that I've done. So I think, and I don't have the capacity to do that anywhere else. Do you get what I mean? So I think that's what's kind of helped me is talking about it, understanding what the issue is, and then kind of coming with some sort of, okay, no, I shouldn't feel like that. Or I think just the fact that it's been so open and I can just talk about it, just get it off. I feel like it's just offloading like why I feel like this. I think it's really massively helped, and just then that kind of gives me things to work on, kind of scenarios or situations, or if you feel like this is how you deal with it. I think it's just, if I'm honest, it's just speaking to someone who actually understands how I feel, because I just don't think I ever have been able to do that, and just understanding that this is pretty normal.
Yeah.
And a lot of that work of, I always come to you with kind of like a scenario throughout that week of like, this has happened, like before we start anything, and then that kind of digs more into the conversation, and where it's hot stuff as well, like it's just happened. I think that's where it's relevant as well, and it's helped me within that next week to be like, okay, if this happens again, then this is how you should deal with it.
Yeah. And you always did come with some good scenarios. And even if we were like trying, okay, how are you going to deal with this? I'd be like, have you got an opportunity coming up where you can practice? You'd be like, yes, I do. I've got 3 next week. But the other thing that you were really good at, which has just reminded me, is you would come and at the beginning of the session, you would tell me like, I did this and I did this and I did this. And you would say, some clients find this really hard, but you would say, like, you would give me scenarios where you had made progress and where you'd been like, oh, I did that differently, or I'd handled that differently.
Yeah.
And you always had some of those every single session.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe you're not that bad at the practice of acknowledging yourself and your progress, which is what you said at the beginning.
Did I say that?
Yeah. Yes, I think you did. All right. So thank you for sharing all that. I think it's great to like have people on the podcast that have actually been through the coaching and like through the program, because I can tell you all about it, but it's probably more interesting for people listening to actually hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, from one of the women that's actually done it. And the last thing that I wanted to ask you about was, I mean, you've told us how you're feeling now, and that's great. But with this like new kind of, this is your new normal now to kind of take forward and to build on, what are you looking forward to doing in the future?
Big question. I think just taking these practices to like the next level and just seeing what the next year or years has in store for me. Obviously, being freelance, I've just kind of in the mix of like founding my own agency, and there's kind of conversations happening. We talk about that transition period that I'm going through.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking the practices that I have now, and I think there's going to be new challenges. I'm going to be put out of my comfort zone. There's going to be new things that are going to be happening with me. I'm just understanding the work that I've done over the past 4 months, 4 or 5 months. Yeah. I'm really seeing them come to play in different scenarios. I think will help. But I mean, at the minute, I am feeling very like super positive about it. I feel like I'm learning how to deal with self-doubt. I don't what was the name we gave all of our kind of person's names.
Yeah, just for the people that are listening, this is like some of the work that we do at the beginning of the program, where your like internal critic, or like your internal doubting voice, gets like a name and a persona, so that you can notice when they pop up and refer to them. What was yours? I can remember some of the others. Go on, you can remember.
Mine was Nikki, because I absolutely hate being called Nikki.
It was like your alter ego, wasn't it?
Oh, if someone calls me Nikki, I'm like, oh no.
You can't see it, but she's making a face.
Just learning when Nikki kind of comes forward, and just kind of listening to what she needs at that moment, why she's making me self-doubt, and then addressing it, and then kind of just putting it to the back of the head, and just thinking a bit more positively about things. But
yeah,
no, I think I'm just I mean, there's going to be like big changes this year, and I'm really excited for it. But I think I needed this, I think, to get to that.
Mm-hmm.
And we're still working on it, but I think this is going to really help me kind of push it. And I mean, going self-employed was a massive I was pushed myself out of my comfort zone massively. But what I'm going to do now, I'm going to then again push myself out of my comfort zone. So it's having this kind of framework, do you get what I mean, to help me do that.
Yeah, cool. Moving on up.
Yeah,
good. And do you know what, we always talk about this, but this work on confidence, it's not static work, because as Nick has just beautifully illustrated, what it does is it puts you in the place where you dare go the next step, and you're going to take the next opportunity. You're going to like start an agency, right? And that's no small thing. And that usually happens with the work that I'm doing. People are, feel better about shifting and changing, but with that comes like new levels, new devils. Like you play a computer game, and there's a different level that you have to deal with, and all of the work you do will help you whatever level that you're at. All of that stuff, like just knowing that Nikki, like the alter ego Nikki, she is going to pop up when there is new things happening, but you know that, and you know how to deal with her when she does.
Okay.
Exactly. Is there any last thing that you want to share with people who are listening?
What would I like to share? I think for me, I think one thing that I'm starting to kind of grasp and learn is I've very much felt like at one point that work defined me, like 100% me. Like that was me. I was defined through work. I passed my GCSEs, did A-levels, went to college, went to uni, did an internship, kind of went that way, and just felt like what I was aspiring to do just meant that was me. Like, and I think work really attributes to a really small amount of who you are as a person. And I think I have to remind myself that sometimes that work is a really small part of me. So when I feel really overwhelmed or stressed, or I feel like work is everything, it doesn't define who I am as a person. I'm so much more outside of work, and I have a life outside of work, and that only attributes to a small amount of who I am. And I think just reminding yourself that when you feel really, really kind of like low confidence, or you're stressed, or all these kind of different negative thoughts come in about work, just kind of remember that. And also, I always do remind myself that, Nicola, you are only dealing with influencers, you're not saving people's lives. And I'm just like, yeah, that's right. Or if I've worked like for beauty, like in a beauty company, it's like, you're only selling lipstick, stop worrying about it. And I'm like, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so something about perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. And actually, I think the stuff that you've worked really hard on has enabled you to go from a place where it is kind of overwhelming, and maybe it now you can see that maybe that was a bit out of perspective, but at the time that was real, and that's how it felt to you.
Yeah.
And now you're like, oh, well, that just is one little part of my life.
Yeah. I mean, I love to say that, and I'd love to practice it a bit more. Like,
Yeah.
I know I'm preaching that, but in the grand scheme of things, that's it basically.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Cool.
that's what I'd love to share.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for being with us. I know that people all really enjoy listening to somebody else who has some of the same thoughts and doubts and challenges, because like you said, this stuff mainly we don't actually talk about. We kind of keep it to ourselves, and maybe we occasionally mention it to a friend or a family member. But one of the things that I love about having people in the program is that they are with a group of people who also experience similar things. And I know how many people come to my trainings. I know how many people listen to podcasts. There are so many people that are experiencing those challenges at work, but mostly we don't really talk about it.
No.
So thank you for being the one that is here talking about it, because other people will definitely identify with the stuff that you're saying.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All
It's been a
right.
joy.
Okay. Thanks, Nick. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Nicola. Again, the Confident at Work program is opening on the 30th of January. We start in April or before if it fills up before then. And you are invited to join us so that you can make some strides with your confidence in exactly the same way Nicola has. I'm going to leave all the links in the show notes, and feel free to get in touch with me, ask any questions. I have personal calls with people to go through. Like Nick said at the beginning, we have a really open conversation and see what you're struggling with. And if I think I can help you, I'll tell you. If I think I can't, I will also tell you. So I'm looking forward to hearing from you, and have a confident week. I'll see you in the podcast next week. Bye.